What happened?
All right. So when I was owner operator, right? So I was still on the job and stuff. I had actually only had one guy working with me at the time. I hired a guy, Craig. He's actually one of our great workers now, right? So we're in this house. I left them at about 1 o'clock to go do estimates because I'm sure everybody's done that where, you're kind of trying to get off of the job, right? And do more of the business side. Well, I get a call, and Craig's bigger dude, right? It wasn't super high walls, maybe like 12 feet. Okay. Well, I get a call from Josh, and he's actually our project manager now, but he goes, there was a fall, right? And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, what does that mean there was a fall? Because there was carpet everywhere. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, the new guy, because it was Craig. It was his first week on the job. And he goes, yeah, he fell. I was like, well, he's a big dude. Like, what do you mean he fell? I was like, that had to like shake the house,
Oh, no.
So I go out, I'm like, all right, I'll be back out there. So I end up going back out. I said, okay, well, where'd he fall at? Well, where he fell at, there was carpet. So they had cleaned it, right? There's a little bit of a mess they got in there. I'm like, okay, well, it looks good. But if everybody spilled paint on carpet, you all know, okay, that once it dries hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm at my kid's T-ball later today. I think everything's good. We're good. Craig didn't hurt himself. He was fine. I go to the homeowner. I'm like, hey, he's like, oh yeah, everything's good. So I'm like, cool. So his wife gets home. I get this call, right? And she's like, one of your guys fell today. I'm like, oh yeah, he just slipped on a rung. No big deal. We ended up getting it cleaned up. She's like, well, it's not cleaned up. My carpet is hard, right? So I'm like, okay. Well, in my head, I'm brand new company. Probably only have like 5 reviews, right? So I really don't have any room for error. All right. So I know I want to go there in the morning, but I'm like, this is a dire need to happen right now moment, right? So I say, no problem. I'll be there in 15 minutes, right? So I tell my wife, hey, got to go out there, right? So on the way there, I'm thinking, okay, this is a brand new company. Let's say their carpet's bad. It's only like a $2,700 job. So it's not a huge job or anything like that, right? So I say, you know what? I'm a company with integrity. That's what I want to be. So I go there, and these people are ready for a fight. Okay. The husband's over here. He's looking at the wife like, oh, you're in for a treat, buddy. Right.
It's about to go down.
Yeah. So she goes down. She's like, feel his carpet. Right. And I'm like, ma'am, you know what? And this is exactly what I said to her. I said, you know what? I want to be honest with you. This is unacceptable. 110%. I go, what I'll do for you is this section of carpet, because I know a buddy that does carpet. I'm like, it's probably about $1,200. I'm not only going to give you $1,200 for a brand new carpet, okay, but I'm not going to make you pay anything for the job. And both of them looked at each other, okay, because I was like, I don't want a bad review. I only have 5 reviews. Like, I can't afford it, right? So they both looked at each other, and the husband's like, I mean, you can't, what are you going to do? And they're like, you don't have to do that. So the lady ends up saying, we have a carpet cleaner downstairs. Let me see if we clean the carpet and everything goes well, right? And everything's good. And I said, well, at least let me give you, because you added on some windows. I was like, at least let me give you the windows for free, and we'll see how it works out. Well, we get there the next morning. Carpet looks brand new, perfect. Finished the job, got paid on it. And then Craig, the funny part about the story was I was on the fence of like, well, do I fire this guy? Like, he fell on his first, week of work. Well, I didn't. I said, you know what? He did a pretty good job. Things happen to everybody. Ended up being one of our, best guys now. So it's a funny story though. I mean, it was super special. I remember going there and I remember walking in, and like you feel yourself sweat and you wipe away, and then there's sweat there again. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well done. So where a lot of guys would have went in arguing, that's why they're ready for an argue. Instead, you came over the top, blew their minds, reestablished trust with them, and they just said, you know what? They're so grateful for your goodwill that they took care of it. It ended up being a raving fan after all. But here's what we all want to know. Did you get your 6th review?
I did get my 6th review.
Yeah, okay.
and I was like worried. You know how I know everybody's had customers who are like, do I send this one? Do I not? I'm like, look, I'm going to send them the review. They were really happy with the paint job. And I ended up getting my 5 stars.
Fantastic. Way to go. All right. Well, hello and welcome to the DYB Podcast. Today's guest is from Macomb County, Michigan, just about an hour from where I grew up. Owner of Elite Paint Home Renovations, going into his 3rd year in business, projecting for $1.2 million this year. He's married to his wonderful wife, Megan, with 5 awesome children, Dominic, Drake, Kingston, Madison, and Jalen. Nick, Kelley, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I love this kind of stuff. This is a lot of the stuff that I watch, to be honest. I'm a book reader, but I have to listen to audibles. and read the book at the same time. It's just how I have trouble retaining. So podcast, I mean, when I was working for the union, this is what really gave me podcast is what really gave me the push to know that like, hey man, like I'm young and I can do this. Right. So I love podcasts. So I appreciate you.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. So take us all the way back to the beginning. How did you get started in business?
Okay. So, well, I'll go even how I got started in painting. So, I really, gonna be honest with you, wasn't the greatest high school student. I played sports. I really didn't like school. I just liked it for the social aspect of everything. This is in the time where if you don't go to college, you're a loser, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was like the thing. So I knew I was going to go to college. Well, what ended up happening was my buddy, Josh, which he actually works for me right now, crazy, but he said, hey man, my dad does this painting thing. You can come help me paint. I used to paint with my dad too, because he was a painter as well. So that was a cool thing. But I actually started my first company other than doing closets with my father, with Josh. And from there, I did, it was just a job. I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't something I thought foreseen myself doing forever. But once I started, after about 2 months, they started showing me how to bid, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm making X amount of dollars. We're bidding these jobs for X amount of dollars. We're getting all this done. I go, there's a lot more money in this than I thought, right? So what I did was I joined the union. I quit that company, joined the union at about 17, 18 years old. And I started working for this company. It was a union company, right? I'm not going to drop any names, but a high-end, basically union company. So union companies are usually doing like commercial work, just like kind of, nothing fancy. Well, these guys were doing fancy stuff. After about 4 years there, this is where I really started kind of seeing like that I was pretty good at my craft. I started running big jobs, and started doing a lot of fine finishing things and stuff like that. And I listened to tons of podcasts, Gary V, a lot of motivational stuff. I really got into meditating. That was something I do every morning, because I always was working for the union and then doing side jobs for myself, which it was Elite Painting and Drywall at the time was the name that I had for my side business, just me doing work, right? So I was working 40 hours a week, plus working and probably an extra 10 or 15 hours, making more money because my wife, obviously we have a ton of kids. So she stays home with them. But I listened to these podcasts and I just, Gary Vee, and it just kind of was like, man, I'm young. It's probably about 22 at the time. And I was like, man, I really think I can do this by myself. I'm bidding these jobs by myself. I'm getting them done by myself, everything like that. Well, a few years ago, I finally, made the jump, and said, you know what, I'm going to just go full fledged on this. I knew that I could get my job back at the company I was working. I got an offer from another union company that wanted me to have a supervisor role with them. So I knew that I could always come back to this. Like worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, I could come back and do this. So I put in my 2 weeks. And there was another guy from the company I worked at came and worked with me. And funny story, I ended up booking like 3 weeks of work, right away. And after the first week of work, he had got another side job, and he was like, "And it's a 3-month job." So I went in there thinking, "Oh, I got this guy that can work, and I can go sell the jobs for right now while I build this thing." And that was 1 week of that, and then it was back to the drawing board. So I basically went and hired a guy who never had any painting experience. It was a person I painted with, son, and basically trained him up from the ground up, and just added a few guys along the way. Funny story. So Josh, who I started painting with, we fell out. We didn't talk for like 6 years. I was doing the union thing. He was kind of doing his own side thing. So I tried calling him. His phone was disconnected because when I lost that guy, I was like, man, I really need a lead so I can go out and sell these jobs, right? So I remember where his mom lived. Okay. So one day I'm like, man, I'm having really trouble hiring guys. Like this was during like the pandemic when hiring was like horrible. It was just real bad. People were getting free money. No one wanted to work. So I went to his mom's house. I parked in front. I knocked on her door and she looked, and she was like, "Oh, Nick. Hey, Nick, how's it going?" So she calls Josh. I was like, "Can you get a hold of Josh? I might have a really good opportunity for him." So she gets on FaceTime with him. She's like, yeah, your little dark Mexican friend, right? I'm not Mexican, but that's what she always thought I was. So, and it was funny, at the time. And I was like, "Hey man, give me a call. Here's my number." He ended up wanting a job, got him started, and now he's one of our project managers. So funny story like that. But one thing I can really say about business in general is that when I got started, the preconceived notions that I had Like, oh, I'm just going to find a bunch of people to work for me. I'm going to be able to golf and chill with my family, and they're just going to take care of everything. Right. Well, it's not like that. Okay. For anybody that knows, it's not exactly like that. But I would say, so we got started. We had a small crew of like 3 guys. I started hiring people. I was working in the field pretty much until 2 o'clock each day, and then doing like a 2, 3, 4, and a 5 o'clock appointment. And I only did Facebook ads. I had no marketing background. I just looked at some YouTube videos, figured out how to run Facebook ads, and put really cool before and afters. That was one big thing, though. I knew I needed to get really good reviews at when I first started. I knew that I really needed to take really good before and after photos, because I understood very early that you are what you market. Okay. Like, I could be the best painter ever, but if everybody doesn't know and can't see that, like, we're doing this fabulous work, it doesn't work for you. No one knows you. Okay. No one knows you. Your friend's sister might know you, but other than that, that's it, you know? So I realized real fast, like, hey, I need to market myself, because I've done so much side work. I knew how it was. It's that you get a job here and there. You might not really want to do the job. Not something is really your cup of tea. And I just wanted things that I knew that I could knock out of the park, do 110%, and get a 5-star review at, right? So that was, that was like one of the biggest things. Is I marketed by myself for Facebook about 7 months, kept us consistently busy. We did $400,000 in our first year with 4 guys. Okay. Which was pretty crazy. I would say I had a lot of experience project managing painting, and I did sales before I ever did painting ever. So I was pretty good in a nutshell at it. The one thing that I didn't have down, though, was the systems. I always believed that from when I started this company, I always was like, I'm going to make this huge. I want to be a huge company. I want to make a bunch of money. Right. Okay. But I got into the painting contractors group. Okay. And that was really a big changing point for me. Okay. Because now I was seeing all these other young cats that were, around my age, that had really successful businesses, that were doing the thing. Right. I started watching Tanner's podcast. Right. And I was like, man, okay, like, I knew I could do it, but now I really know I could do this. And I heard about the PCA Expo. And I was like, I made some money, right? But I was like, I come from a broke family, right? So we didn't have a lot of money. Okay. So going to spend $3,500 to go to an event and all that is not something like I just do. Okay. It was like a big decision. Like, I'm used to spending $500. Okay. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this. I think I'm going to roll the dice and I'm going to go to this expo. Right. So I take my crew lead, Josh. I actually gave the other 2 guys the week off because I just didn't have it like that, right? I couldn't keep the business running, and like, I just wasn't there yet, right? So Josh came out there with me, and that was the eye-opening thing for me. Was I talked to everybody, okay? I went to all the meetings. I took notes at everything, and I realized that systems, right? Systems was the way that everybody was making this look easier, right? And I'm like, because I'm running like, with my head cut off all around, trying to do everything, right? And I realized very quickly that delegating responsibilities is how you make this look easy. It's how you aren't stressed all the time, right? Building systems to where things are just automatically, going in the way, like paint's being ordered, things like that, right? And then from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a secretary. I'm going to hire 3 more people. And I'm just going to do the thing, because I knew I could sell work. Okay. And I knew one thing that I knew was, if I wanted to build the company as quickly as I wanted to and get to where I wanted to go the fastest, I needed to spend money on marketing. And the problem with me is because I come from broke, right? Not having very much money. I could never justify in my head spending $3,000 to $6,000 to $10,000 a month. I'm like, I didn't even make that much money paying someone that much money when I worked. You know what I mean? So now I'm just going to pay someone to do that. And when I understood ROI, though, and saying, okay, yeah, you might spend $3,000, but you might turn that $3,000 into $40,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 or even $20,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is when I really started understanding how marketing worked, right? Because I think that's very important. I think that's one thing in our business that people don't realize, is that I like the option to figure out what leads I'm going to go on. I don't like just taking anything that comes in. I like to pre-qualify my leads, know that they're my bread and butter, know that I can knock it out of the park, know I can give the customer exactly what they want. It makes it really easy to get a 5-star review there. And we're in a day and an age of everyone is looking at reviews. I mean, you go on Amazon, right? Okay. You got this pair of scissors, you got that pair of scissors. This pair of scissors, 3 stars. That one's 5 stars. This one's $3 extra. Which one are you buying?
5 stars.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where I was like, okay, I need to do that. And then one thing that I started doing these video walkthroughs of the jobs and like the colors we were using and things like that, being like that. And you don't know how many appointments I go on now where people are like, I watched all your videos, right? Like before, and I just love them, right? And it's nothing. It's actually like I laugh at myself when I do these videos because I'm not like, I can get on the phone and do a little selfie video because when I was younger, like on, the phone and stuff, right? But like, I never really thought that would be something that customers would really like, but it builds trust. So these people see the job site you're on, they see you walk it before, once it's prepped, after it's done, they know how the whole situation is going to go if they hire you, right? So it makes it a lot easier for someone to pull the trigger on your company knowing that. And it was uncomfortable. I mean, my guys would laugh at me. We would laugh together because we have a very strong company culture here. I think that's super important for our company in general. Like we just did a Top Golf event where I, rented 2 bays, had everybody come out on a Friday, paid all of them for the Friday being there. And we had a good time. We've done Tigers games, Detroit Tigers games, town. We've also done Red Wings hockey games, which were really cool. They really like that. But we really try to make this an environment for people to want to come here and do a good job. Like one of my selling points is that my guys are going to come here with a smile on their face and be excited to do your project. And people don't realize that in the contractor field, that's not very common, right? People come there and they'll do a good job, but are they happy about it, right? Are they happy to be there? Are they like, so that's like super important for us here because there's times where this crew's a little bit ahead, right? This crew's a little bit behind, and I have to pull these guys and say, hey, go over there and help them get a little bit ahead of the game, right? Well, if this crew don't like this crew, or they don't mesh really well, and not everybody's used to working with each other, that's going to be a lot harder than, having people that, constantly are hanging out and constantly know, hey, I can tell him to do something and he's not going to be like, hey, you're not my boss, right? You know what I mean? Because we all know how that goes. Everyone has their crew lead who they listen to. They hear another crew lead tell them, and you're looking at this guy like, dude, I don't know who you're talking to. Like, I don't work on your crew, So we really tried to build something really, really like energetic here. Like we got this from Corey Leister, the one, she's the cabinet queen, I call her, right?
Yeah.
I love this because like, it's like replacing words that we use, right? With positive words, right? Like can't, I can, hard, challenging, nervous, composed, worried, confident, right? Worried, confident. I love that, because it's so true. When you're worried, right? Okay. Where do you fall back on? Okay. You fall back on your, hey, I know how to do this. I know how to fix this. I've ran into this problem. I know I can do this, right? So there's no reason to be worried because we know we have SOPs and everything in our company to tell you exactly when you run into problems, how to fix them, right?
Right on.
So that's one big, huge thing. But I went from last year, I mean, just in one calendar year, I have 4 guys last year around this time. And I was just getting off of like working on the jobs like at all. Now I wasn't working full time or anything, but I was still spraying doors here, doing that, right? But last year I didn't have a shop. We got a shop. We got a spray booth. We didn't have any vans until about a year and some change ago. We got vans now. We got 11 employees. I have a secretary right now. I've just moved up one of our team leads to a project manager role and moved another guy up to a team lead role. We're doing the training right now for that. We just started doing once a month. We let everybody put on a paper something that they want to be trained on, right? And then we do a vote of what we want to do that on. One was spraying. I have 2 people that just sprayed doors yesterday that never sprayed a day in their life. And they primed 2 sets of doors and they didn't call me one time, So that's something that's super beneficial. But these are like things that I always thought were like, why are these guys wasting money and doing a training day? Like you can make so much money in that day, right? And it's like, now I see that's going to help me tenfold. Because guess what? Now I have another person I can say, hey, there's some doors that need to be primed. Let's just keep you here priming doors. And I'll send one of, my spray guy who's a heavy hitter onto the job to knock some stuff out if need be, right? So those are super, super big things, and kind of like my story. One thing I can say is that honestly, I never had a serious job until I went and painted with my friend. Never. I mean, I had a Joe Randazzo's fruit job, a Taco Bell job, right? So that was like the first thing where I kind of saw, I was like, okay, I can see a future in this, right?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned sales training before painting. What was that?
So I was really young. I was like 16 years old, right? And I went to this. It was called ACS, or was the actual company. It was actually fundraising, right? They call it. So you had the Navy Veterans Association. You had breast cancer, right? So you would cold call. It would just, you'd have a thing on. It would dial for you. You'd have to get these people on the phone. They put you through like a week training, give you a script. Then you basically build down your script to what's a necessity, and you do it. There's like 1,600 people that work there. In my first month, by the fourth week that I was painting there, I was the fifth person out of 1,600 people in the
Yeah.
fundraiser. Okay. I just learned quick. I was like, okay, I seen who the top guys were. I would go over on my break, and instead of eating lunch, okay, I would sit there and I'd listen to how they did their calls. And I would sit there for 30 minutes and just looking at them. And they'd always be like, dude, can you get out of here? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to sit tight here for a minute, eat this granola bar. Okay. So I would do that. And, I started taking little its and bits of what they were doing, and I would write it down. Right. So by that like third week, I knew how these guys were doing it. Right. So I just started doing that. And then what ended up happening after about 6 months at that company, I was still like fresh, dude. I think I just turned 17. And they offered me, a position of like the training. So that 1 week training that we go, it was me and two other guys that they wanted us to do it because no one had done that fast. I mean, those guys, the Moody brothers, they were twins, and they were always 1 and 2. I was 3, right? Because these guys have been there for like 6, 7 years. They were beasts, right? But they liked that I learned so fast, and they wanted to give me an opportunity to start teaching other people. So that's where I got a lot of that's the hardest sell, I'll tell you right now. You call someone who doesn't want to answer the phone, you start talking about a cause they do not care about, right? Those are the toughest, okay? You get hung up on FUs, this, you know what I mean? Like, so you have to have tough skin. But what I realize is that I don't know these people. You know what I mean? I'm going to try and have a good time. And you'll get these people who will get on the phone with you and have a good time with you. And it ends up being an enjoyable conversation, right? And that really prepped me very well for getting in front of people, because nothing's harder than that, right?
Yeah.
And I also did in the summers when I was still doing that job, I would knock doors and canvas for a brick company. Okay. Well, try and do that. Okay. Try and canvas and knock doors. Trust me, you got to have tough skin for this kind of stuff, right? So it really prepared me. Nothing bad. What I tell people all the time is once you kind of go there, I mean, if someone says no to you in front of you and, about a price that you want, it's so much easier because you're in the door, you're not getting slammed on. I told you, leave me alone. Don't you see the sign? You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So it really helped prepare me for this stuff. And it's one thing that Brad Ellison, good friend of mine, he tells me all the time. Sales just comes natural to me. We have conversations all the time. So it's like, I always think like, oh man, just do this. Right. And he sometimes will humble me and be like, bro, it's normal people don't just like come straight to that. You know what I mean? Sometimes this isn't something that's natural for people. It's something that's natural for you. And it's something that I'm starting to realize, especially when I'm starting to build SOPs and trainings for bringing on a salesperson now,
Right on. Now, I have a feeling, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where does your drive come from?
Honestly, man, I'm a very competitive person. When I was younger, I was competitive. I just always wanted to be a winner. And when I found something, I grabbed painting and I knew I was good at it, and I was fast at it, and I was thorough with it. And I learned and I absorbed, right? And when I figured, I was like, this could be the thing that makes me develop into the person I always knew I could be. Because I always knew I could be this great, like, I'm not saying I'm like better than everybody, don't get me wrong, but I knew I could be something more and be something where I could help other people. Because that's what's most important to me. I'll be honest with you. Like, I get a adrenaline rush of walking into someone's house, getting them excited about a project, right? And then delivering that to them. And because we had a lady cry one time. She was so happy. She started crying because she had this vision of just these white cabinets. And I was like, what was her name? it was Lester was the husband's name. I forget what the lady's name was, but I was like, Lester, listen, I was like, that's a great idea. I was like, but let me give you a couple ideas. I was like, I think if we do this, because they had side cabinets, this cabinet, and like this other thing, and they wanted to do all their stairs just in white, right? And I just done some projects where I could make it look really good. I was like, let's try this. And they're like, okay, we'll try this, right? So we left the top steps stained. We did all the side panels in white. And then we did the island in an accent color, the side in a color that matched their countertops, and then the white ivory lace that they wanted, right? And it looked so good. I mean, it looked so good. And I was like, oh, they're going to be so happy. This lady walked out because they only wanted just a basic white and everything. But I went with my idea. And she was so happy. She started crying. She's like, I didn't even imagine my house ever looking as good as it does now. That's what like drives me. That and my children. I will say my family and my children. Like I just will never. It's like some people give themselves an option. I don't give myself options. It's like, this is what needs to be done. This is why I do it. And this is what I'm going to do. Right. Eric said, I think he was saying, what was it? It's like, he said kind of the same thing worded differently. Like, it's not an option to me. You know what I mean? When I make a list of what I need to do in each and every day, one thing that's always on that list is make sure I have enough energy to give my full time to my children when I get home each day. Because a lot of people will tire themselves out at work and give 150% and then go home and just like, oh, I'm too tired. I can't do it, or I can't do it. That's not even an option in my head. You know what I mean? Like, I go home, I spend 3 hours with my children, maybe 4 sometimes before they go to bed. I get them to bed. We go outside and we play. And I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of times I am tired. But that is one thing that I said when I started my company is I'm doing this because I want to spend more time with my family. And I want to be there for every event that I can for my family. Because in the union, that was one thing I'd ask these questions, because I'd listen to Gary Vee to get me all pumped up, right? And I'd ask these questions. I'd be like, what's one thing you guys like regret? Because we'd always eat lunch together. You'd be on a job with like 15, 20 guys, right? And it was a consensus thing is I wish that I would have been at more of my children's events and spent more time with my family, right? So those are things that when I decided to make that jump, that it was not an option for me. It just wasn't. It was that if I ever felt like I was overworking or anything like that, like I get done what I need to get done at the office. I go home and spend time with my families. And then on the weekends, I spend time with my family as well. Like that's their time. I don't get a lot of time for myself. I'm going to be honest with you. But that was my decision because I wanted to have 5 children. And when I decided to do that, like that's on me. When my kids are older, because I had my kids when I was younger and I'm retired chilling and I have this great company that's running in systems, right? I'll be able to do whatever I want. You know what I mean? But I try to make time to myself in the morning and meditate and pray. I pray every single morning. God is huge in my life. I tell you that right now. I pray every day, multiple times a day. I mean, we just had a job actually where we used this new product. It was a super deep base. We sprayed the doors. We added some cross linker for the gut and it mistinted. So it made the color that was on the gut was different than the color that was on the doors. So we're done. It was a beautiful job. We put them up. The homeowner, I get there, they sent me a picture. So I went over to it and I was like, homeowner's like, the doors look great. The gut looks great. They don't look great together, right? So I was like, all right, well, we'll figure this out. So what I did was I had product at the shop, added the cross linker to it, resprayed all the doors. And I personally came here last night to spray those doors to make sure that this was ready for the customer because the customer had a party that they're having on Sunday. And that was one of the main concerns was that they wanted to make sure that this project was done for their party on Sunday. So I made it happen for them. My guys got everything else done, but I had to come and just flip them around and spray them one time. But I got 2 people hanging doors right now, finishing off that job. But I just think that those are super important things. Integrity is huge to me. Customer service is huge. I do not ever want to be the contractor that comes out of someone's mouth that says, well, they did a great job. We tried calling them back, never could get a hold of them. There was one touch-up we seen, right? I never want to be that guy because I try to treat people, my customers, my children, my employees, which I fall short of this sometimes. Okay. So I'm not going to say I'm perfect because I'm not, but I try to on a regular basis, do the next right thing and treat people how I would want to be treated in business. So like I call people, like I called Doug, said, hey, just want to give you, because I'm sure they're nervous now, right? They've seen this thing. They knew that we had their doors for a week. They're like, oh my gosh, like, is this not going to be done on this party? Did I pick the right company? Hey, Doug, just want to let you know everything's good. We got all those doors sanded. I had this in 911. I go, we got the other side sprayed. I'm going to let it sit here till about 8 o'clock, and I'm going to come here personally myself and spray the other side so we can make sure we can get those hung for you tomorrow. He was so happy, nicest guy ever. But I do that extra stuff because I know how it is to be in that position and be like, oh my gosh, like nervous. Like this guy's nervous. And you know what I mean? About a project that he's paying me a bunch of money to do. I do not ever let my customers sit like that. I just think that's wrong. Like I want them to know exactly what's going on, exactly that, hey, you got nothing to worry about. Sleep good at night tonight and let's get this thing done.
Right on. Now, you mentioned systems. Part of systems are having a proper tech stack. What does your tech stack look like?
So we have drip jobs. We use Busy. That is an app that tracks time. It also job costs for us. So I can actually put into there like the amount of hours that the job was bid for. It will show me the employees that are there, right? And how many hours from how much they're getting paid is taken off of that project. So I can literally go on my computer and look at any time if a project's behind, forward, or whatever's going on. It makes it pretty easy. But that, we use QuickBooks as well. QuickBooks is a big thing that we use. It helps us to see where we're at financially, especially when you're growing. It's super important to have. And the reason why is because I've been doing a lot of rapid growing. We've been hiring a lot of people. And obviously, like your money in and out is going to change because if you bring on 3 people, now you got to spend more marketing dollars, right? Okay. And you have to see what everything weighs out because then sometimes you have to do some adjustments based on like your projects, right? Because I try to be as competitive as I possibly can be. I think a lot of people try to make as much profit as they possibly can be. I think if you want to be profitable 110%, like we're at a 51% pop. So we're definitely profitable. Okay. But the other thing to me is that how can I get more people and like my cabinet jobs, like can I make them a little bit cheaper because we have so many people doing them when we're making so much money that my profit margin's still huge? Like, do I really have to squeeze? So I try to do that as well. And I don't know if a lot of people do that, but that's something that I do. Like my cabinet jobs, I know that they're pricey because we do, I think, a better job than anybody in our area. And we give, a 5-year warranty on them, all this stuff, right? So what I try to do is when I hire more people, like when now I have 3 cabinet sets going on a week, right? I don't have to be at 7,500. I can be at around $6,000 and I have 3 of them going on and I'm still profiting way more than probably everybody else is, right? Based on the wages that I have. And because I only have 2 people doing cabinets. So I have 3 2-man crews and I have a shop guy that stays in the shop and just sprays all the doors, So we're able to be a lot more competitive that way. And instead of having to keep that number that high, we can be more competitive, get more work. Our close percentage went up. We did that 2 months ago and our close percentage went up 12 points. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So those are like I think data is so crazy. If I wish that when I first started that I tracked everything. It doesn't matter if you have 2 guys, track it all. If you're doing a cabinet set with 35 doors and drawers, they're maple, know exactly how long that took you for you two guys to do that, right? And then systemize it. That was one thing I didn't do. I didn't write anything on paper. I just thought like, oh, I'll be in the field. I'll show them all how to do it. And everything's just going to go great. Well, it's just not how it goes. It might be great for when you're doing 1 job a week, but when you start doing 5, 6 jobs, even 4 jobs in a week, like you have to have everything systemized or like how people are going to order their paint. Like we on Thursdays, we have our crew leads ordering paint for the following week's jobs. We have folders set up right there with the jobs for the next week, right? That they go in, they see the job detail, they order the paint that needs to be done. It gets dropped off at our shop. Our secretary labels it then, and then it's ready for them to go for the following week with the PO on it, right? Like that wasn't a thing you really needed to do with 1 job. But when you have that many jobs going on, it's a necessity, right? It's just something that like has to happen. But systemizing our company has really bought me back time though. If you're an owner, you're rapidly growing, you feel like your head's, you're being pulled in 90 different ways, sit down, figure like, how do we paint walls? How do I want my guys painting walls? How do I want my guys, picking up cabinet doors? How do I want my guys sanding doors? What kind of grit sandpaper? All that stuff. Just take an 8-hour time block and do that. Okay. And I am telling you right now, it's not like it's all just going to happen right overnight, but train them on these processes, build a process of like where you can give them accountability to using these processes, like a checks and balances. Right. And I'm telling you, within about a 60-day period, you will see a crazy significant change of stress level. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
so Nick, you mentioned drip jobs. We kind of ran over that for first time listeners. Explain drip jobs, please.
Okay, so Drip Jobs is huge. Okay, so I tried different CRMs. I've had House Call Pro. Was it another one that we used? Cheap option, $50 wasn't bad for when I first got it. Drip Jobs really has made a significant difference for us personally. And the reason why is it automates text messages. So like someone fills out a lead form, right? They're getting touched immediately. So hey, and I switched it to my secretary's name. So hey, this is Brittany. So if they contact back, she's able to call them, discuss things with them. So when she says, hey, this is Brittany from Elite Paint, they already know who she is. Because they're like, oh, Brittany, the one that sent me the message, right? Not only that, for our crews, running our crews, now that we're growing, I mean, being able to just, I like printing them and putting them in a folder. I like people touching it. That way they have to read it. Like, because on your phone, you could go, something pops up and then you just go to Facebook, right? Or something like that. So I like them touching it. But we print out the work orders from Drip Jobs. It's just been a super beneficial thing for me being a painting contractor. And for people who aren't very good at following up, I'm very good at following up. I'll be honest with you. I think you can make a ton of money on following up. That is like, people don't realize, like, you go and give an estimate, that's just one little straw there, dude. Because if you're a higher price, you got to follow up. And you got to follow up multiple times until someone tells you no, you got to keep following up. But they do automatic follow-ups, which gives you touch points for then it to reopen up the sale, right? So like they'll send an automatic drip, right? Hey, Jenny, it's been 6 days. Seen the approval hasn't come through. Wondering if you needed any other information to make a decision, right? Well, yeah. So we were looking at cost of paint, right? Why is that so much? Bam! I get on the phone. I see that came up. I call them immediately, and now I start talking about cost of paint. But not only am I talking about that, now I'm reselling them. I'm reeling them in. Is that the only information that you needed? Was it just the paint that was really keeping you away from approving this estimate? Well, no, start time. So I see you guys get here at 8:30. I would need people here at 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m. Okay. That's no problem. You know what? I actually have some doors that they can sand in the week that I'm looking at scheduling you guys. If I get them there at 9 a.m., right? Would that help earn your business today? Like, is that the only, breaking straw here? Cindy or whatever her name is, right? And then I just sell them and we get them and I get them to approve it then. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people don't realize that that's so huge because it opens up the door for them to list their pain points for you to sell and collect that deposit or whatever you guys are doing, right? And I love that. I love Drip Jobs. It's really, really helped me. Even when I didn't have my secretary, it was like a safe haven because I knew if I couldn't get on the phone right away, if I was spraying or something like that I had someone that was touching base with them right away. And then when I could get to them, they didn't feel like they just called someone and no one ever answered or called them right away. You get what I'm saying?
Yep, right on. What are some books that you really like and that you recommend?
Traction that's the number one. I started with Grit. I went with Traction.
What are some of your takeaways from Traction?
I mean, the way that I've ran my company, that like the leadership roles, everything that they're doing, I wasn't a business savvy guy, right? I was a good salesman, but business wasn't anything. This was a system that it literally step by step tells you, and then you can put into your business, see what works or doesn't work for you, right? But even if you take 2 things from the book and apply it to your company, it's going to help you tenfold, right? So Traction is something I would definitely suggest for early, like if you're just starting your company, you're just getting into some of these things that I explained, right? Get into Traction, get a notepad out, take notes, and I promise you, try and instill some of these things into your company, and it will help you tenfold. Okay. Another one was $100 million offer. Alex Hermosi. Last name, but
Hermosi. Yeah.
Great book on marketing. Okay, in general, sales and marketing, but like marketing touch base on it really. If you don't know much about marketing or how it works, or you're working with a marketing company and you don't think they're doing a good job or something like that, read that book, see if they're doing stuff like they're doing in that book, and it will help you understand if they're doing a good job or if they even know what they're doing, right? That was something that really opened my eyes and helped me when I was having these Zoom calls with my marketers, right? And keeping them on their toes, okay? Like, hey, are they really doing, because that's one thing that was super nerve-wracking to me. We're paying all this money. How do I know? Oh, it's going to take 3 to 4 months for this to work and 60 days for this to work, right? And you're just like, sounds like you're going to get paid a lot before I get any results, right? So this is a way to educate yourself so that you can, give them some pointers or see if they're doing some things as well. Love that book though. But like I was telling you before the podcast, I learned most of my stuff from podcasts, man. Podcasts, I listen to content That is my bread and butter. I'm in my car. I got someone's podcast on that I'm listening to, whatever I choose, because I always choose on Sundays. I plan the week out of what topic am I going to search, and then I make a podcast or something each day that I'm going to devote on that topic to educate myself, right? Because as a business owner, I know about painting, right? But business, sales, things, it's constantly evolving. So you want to, if I'm not learning new things and I'm trying to tell my guys to learn new things, like who am I, right? You got to stay ahead of the curve. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize is that, like, if you have a bunch of marketing channels out, you see it. Like Facebook works really good one month, Google works really good one month, then door hangers, then you know what I mean? So you have to kind of be a little bit everywhere and see, okay, this is working well. Let me like put some more eggs in that basket for this month, right? And I think that's one thing that people don't realize is if you're just using one marketing channel, I promise you this, like there's going to come a point where that's not going to work for a month or two and you're going to be stressed out, right?
Oh, yeah,
so you want to dip into a little bit of everything for sure.
Right on. I really appreciate you coming on, Nick. This has been awesome. It's cool. We have a lot in common. You live about an hour away from where I grew up. I also had a poor upbringing. I also got started in telemarketing sales. I was 17 and also came down here in Florida, started all over, cold calling door to door. Door to door. Can I paint your house?
Yep.
No.
So you
Can I
know
paint
how
your
it
house?
is. You got
Get
to
off my lawn. Can I paint your house? Dog. So, yeah. But it gave us the tenacity, the will to just keep going, and we're not scared of no's anymore, right? Like we're already at no. We can't get any more no than what we are right now, so might as well ask for it, right? Is there a question I should have asked or a final point you'd like to make before we roll out?
The final point I like to make, and I like to do this for everybody, man. A business owner is a lonely road. Okay. Seek out these people who are other business owners on these pages. Okay. I tell everybody I come in contact with, like, if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, in anything, like, please reach out to me. Right. But you're not alone. It's hard sometimes. There's days where I'm like on the top of the world and I think this is the greatest thing. And there's days like, am I just going to get rid of this company? Okay. It happens to the best of us. Grit, you have to have grit in this business because there's going to be days and curveballs left and right. But just stay positive. You can always choose to be happy. Like you can always choose to look at the glass half full. That's one thing. I do a lot of videos on Facebook of like positivity. And it's sometimes more for me than anybody else. I'm just trying to get myself in that mind frame. But there's tons of people out here, especially in the painting business, that are willing to help you in any way, shape, or form and give you anything that you need. PCA is a absolutely fantastic organization that is willing to help. There's so many people in there willing to help. Seek out these people and ask. Put the pride away and ask for help. And just know we all started where you guys are at, like where you're at or where I was at. We all started at a place where we had one guy or it was just you painting, right? Limiting beliefs are always going to keep you at that point. You can do so much more than what your mind tells you. Just stay positive. And the one thing I can tell you is that if you're not trying to work hard, being a business owner is not the job for you. Because that's one thing that I put in my head every day is that I'm willing to get up and I'm willing to work harder than everybody else to get to that end position that I am. But the one thing, and then I'll end with this, is that do not always make sure that family is number one for you as well. Do not sacrifice your family time for your business. Make sure that you're able to balance both of those in each world, because you will regret that. You can always get money back. You cannot get time back. So I will end with that though.
Right on. If somebody would like to follow up, what's the best way that they could connect or contact you?
So my email address, this is my actual personal one, is nkells32@gmail.com. On Instagram, it's Elite Paint Home Renovations. On TikTok, it is Elite Paint Home Reno. Facebook, though, Nick Joe. Look me up on Facebook. Message me on Facebook. I have people that do that periodically. If you message me on there, I will get back to you. I will help you with anything that I can. And the reason I do that is because I had so many great people in this industry, Brad, Nick, Tanner, Eric, and the list goes on, that have done the same thing for me. So reach out to me on Facebook. I have no problem helping you out there.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Nick. Have a great day.
Hey, you as well. Thank you, sir.